Good morning, everyone. We were discussing about the charged colored particles, electrofiltration of charged colloidal particles. But before doing the quantification of what is the effect of electric field, we had to find out what is the external electric field will influence the movement of the charged particle. And we have seen that the electrophoresis will take place under the external electric field over the charged particles. So, charged particles will move in the electrolytic solution in a particular direction based on the difference in the potential. Now, in order to find out the electrophoretic velocity and the electrophoretic mobility, one need to find out what is the effect of electrolyte concentration in the on the charged sphere or charged colloids, and ultimately what is the effect of the potential distribution that will be around the sphere. So, in the last class what we have seen, we consider a charged flat surface is placed in an electrolytic solution, and how the Debye length will be defined, and that will be basically giving you an idea or estimate of the influence, the region of influence where the external electric field will play a dominant role. Okay. So, now we have also seen what is the electric potential field that will be distribution around the charged sphere. So, we will just take a look at it, and then we will continue to our discussion and estimate what is the electrophoretic velocity under the influence of external electric field. Okay. So, the potential distribution around the charged sphere is very important as far as our actual application is concerned. Okay. So, we have to take recourse to the Poisson's equation, and if you remember, the Poisson's equation has to be written in the spherical coordinate in r. The Laplacian will be written in r, theta and phi. There is symmetry you consider, it is one dimensional flow field only, and then the concentration will be replaced by the Boltzmann distribution. So, Poisson-Boltzmann distribution has to be written in the spherical polar coordinate. Then we will take recourse to the Debye-Huckel approximation, that means psi will be the surface potential will be less than 25 millivolt. Okay. So, you will be getting some kind of simplification in your calculations, and finally, you will be getting the expression of the potential distribution as 1 over r square d dr of r square d psi dx d psi dr equal to kappa square psi. Now, you put you do a substitution of change in variable psi as u by r, and just simplify this equation, and then this equation has to be solved with the boundary condition. The solution of this equation turns out to be a by r e to the power kappa r plus b by r e to the power minus kappa r. In fact, I told you to I just omitted one step in between. I told you to include this variation transformation of variable here and solve this equation, and if you do not do that, please do that by yourself. Okay. And this equation has to be solved against the two boundary conditions, so that you can estimate the integration constants a and b. These boundary conditions are psi is equal to 0 as r tends to infinity. This is basically the condition of the bulk, and psi is equal to surface potential at r is equal to a. So, the final solution of the potential distribution, so basically using these two boundary conditions, one can estimate a and b, and the final solution turns out to be psi naught a by r exponential minus kappa r minus a. Okay. Where a is the radius of the charged particle, that we have already derived already seen in the last class. Now, in this class we will define what is the net charge residing on the particle and how the electrophoretic mobility will be estimated. Okay. So, next we will see estimation of charge on the sphere. If you know the flow field, then potential distribution, you can estimate what is the charge residing on the sphere. charge sphere. So, one can do a charge balance, you carry out a charge balance, that means net charge, because the bulk of the solution will be electroneutral, there is no excess charge. So, what is the excess charge? Excess charge is a charge residing on the solid particles plus the charge that is within the electrical double layer in the solution. So, summation of these two charges will be equal to 0, because in the bulk of the solution it is electroneutral. So, charge residing on the particle plus the charge in the double layer, this 4 pi r square rho dr, r is equal to a to infinity must be equal to 0. So, this is the charge on the surface, outer surface of the colloid, and this term will be the charge, net charge in electrical double layer. Okay. So, what is your Q? Q can be estimated from this equation 4 pi r square rho dr, and then you put the expression of of charge density rho that we have derived in the last class in this equation. So, it turns out to be minus of integral a to infinity 4 pi r square dr, and I am going to write down the expression of rho, that is a net charge density, as summation n0 zi e exponential minus zi e psi over kBt. Okay. Now, again you so that this is the expression, and you will be getting the, after carrying out this integration, you will be getting the net charge residing on the solid colloid particle. But the point is, again one can, it is difficult to carry out this integration, because r square is there and the psi is there. So, in order to do that, what you can do, one can again take recourse to the Debye-Huckel approximation and open up this exponential term. Okay. Use Debye-Huckel approximation. Okay. That means Z e, that is psi is less than 25 millivolt, and under that condition the whole equation becomes simplified, and this becomes a to infinity epsilon 4 pi r square dr summation of zi e square ni naught epsilon kBt times psi. Okay. And so, what is this? This is nothing but the inverse of Debye square, kappa square. Okay. So, by definition, so this becomes 4 pi kappa square epsilon integration a to infinity r square psi dr. Right. Now, we have already derived the expression of the potential distribution about the charge sphere as a function of r, and we are going to insert it there. So, this becomes 4 pi kappa square epsilon a to infinity psi naught times a exponential minus kappa r minus a r dr. Okay. So, this becomes, after carrying out this integration, you can carry out this integration, and this becomes 4 pi epsilon a 1 plus kappa psi naught. Okay. So, your psi naught or surface potential becomes q divided by 4 pi epsilon a 1 plus kappa. Now, if you know the surface potential psi naught, you can estimate the value of q from this expression, and kappa is the inverse of Debye length is a function of electrolyte concentration and the nature of the electrolyte and the property of the solution, dielectric constant, so on and so forth. So, if just you see what is the difference between the electrostatic and this system. If you compare this expression with the electrostatic, that means if there is a stationary charged sphere with the surface charges q, then what was the psi naught on the surface? That was q divided by 4 pi epsilon a. So, what is the correction? This correction 1 plus kappa a, and this becomes becomes very important whenever you are talking about the electrolytic solution. So, this is the effect of electric double layer. Okay. So, this is the effect of electric double layer EDL in the solution, and those who have come late or could not attend the last class, we can clarify the significance of electric double layer. It is basically the region around a charged sphere or a charged flat surface, where the presence of electric field in the electrolytic solution will be realized or experienced. Beyond that, the solution becomes electroneutral, and the potential, because electric potential, because of the presence of the charged surface, will be nil there. Okay. So, that is the electrical double layer, and this is the effect, and how, and this is the way it will be influencing the surface potential and the charge residing on the particle. Now, as we have mentioned earlier, in an actual scenario, when you are having a charged particle in an electrolytic solution, how will you estimate the charged surface potential? It is difficult. So, therefore, you will be using a meter, that is called zeta meter, zeta sizer, and using the zeta meter one can estimate the zeta potential of the on the outer surface of a charged sphere. But at which location? Because we have already seen that there will be always a Stern layer associated with the charged sphere, which is basically the counter ions will form a sort of layer, and that will be moving, and it is moving along with the charged sphere as an envelope. So, therefore, the outside surface of the Stern layer becomes becomes exposed to the electrolytic solution, and the potential that will be measured by the zeta potential meter will be the potential that is residing, potential that is existing on the outer surface of the Stern layer, and typically the Stern layer thickness will be extremely small. So, if we can neglect the thickness of the Stern layer, so if the Stern layer thickness is neglected, then this psi naught will be approximated as zeta potential. So, this is nothing but the zeta potential. So, what I mean is that zeta potential is a measurable potential. On the other hand, psi naught, that is the exact potential on the outer surface of the charged sphere. It is difficult to measure because of the presence of Stern layer. Okay. So, one can measure zeta potential and can estimate the value of Q, that is 4 pi epsilon A 1 plus kappa A, and psi naught will be replaced by the zeta potential if we neglect the thickness of the Stern layer, or the potential drop across the Stern layer is neglected, or it will be, in fact it will be extremely small. So, therefore, what you have now, if you measure the zeta potential using a zeta meter, and this kappa and radius of the particle will be known to you, and kappa, the Debye length, inverse of the Debye length will be known to you, because you have the expression of Debye length, and it is a function of the concentration of the electrolyte and its characteristic, whether it is 1:1 electrolyte or 2:1 electrolyte or 3:1 electrolyte, and the properties of the solution, and epsilon will be known to you, it is a constant. So, one can estimate the net charge Q residing on the solid sphere or the charged colloid. Okay. So, next what we will see, now we will be in a position to get the electrophoretic velocity. So, we go to the electrophoresis. So, basically whatever we have theoretical study that we have done in the last class and the class before that, is basically to obtain this expression. Okay. So, I just wanted to show you that this expression does not come out of blue, there is a solid theory behind it. Okay. So, there are two cases of electrophoresis that we will consider. One is for the case number 1, that is kappa A is much less than 1. Okay. So, the electrostatic force that is applied on the, there are two cases. Case number 1 is kappa A is much less than 1, another case the kappa A much greater than 1. So, for electrostatic force, applied on the particle due to external electric field, it becomes F E is nothing but Q multiplied the field multiplied by E is nothing but the field strength. Okay. That all of you know. Now, what is the implication of kappa A is much less than 1, that means kappa inverse is much greater than A, right, and kappa inverse and kappa inverse is nothing but the Debye length. So, we are talking about a very high Debye length, although the compared to 1 nanometer it may be, let us say 7 nanometer, 7 times or 5 times like that. So, in this case we are talking of a diffused double layer. This condition kappa A is quite large compared to the particle radius is known as the diffused double layer. So, physically this condition kappa A much less than 1 means we are talking about a diffused double layer, where the double layer thickness is quite large compared to the radius of the solid particle. The viscous force typically you will be getting by the in the Stokes region, and on a solid on a sphere the viscous force it becomes 6 pi mu r times v, where v is basically the velocity. Now, under the steady state the viscous for these two forces will be equal, right, viscous force will be equal to electric force. So, you can get F viscous is nothing but F E, and you will be getting 6 pi mu r v is nothing but Q times E, and electrophoretic velocity becomes Q E divided by 6 pi mu r, okay, where r is nothing but A, that is the radius of the particle that we have decided and discussed earlier. So, this is known as the electrophoretic velocity. Okay. This is the expression. Now, what is electrophoretic mobility? Electrophoretic mobility is defined as electrophoretic velocity per unit field strength, right. So, V divided by E. So, this becomes Q divided by 6 pi mu r. Okay. So, that is the expression of electrophoretic mobility. So, therefore, depending on the situation, if we have kappa A much less than 1, that means if we are talking about a diffused double layer, we are going to use this expression as electrophoretic velocity. So, let us look into the other extreme, other asymptote. Okay. By using this electrophoretic mobility, U is equal to Q divided by 6 pi mu r. And you can replace Q in the definition. In the definition means in the relation of Q and psi naught, that is the charge residing on the particle and the psi naught that we just derived it. If you put this expression of U there, then this becomes U becomes 2 by 3 epsilon zeta. So, this psi naught will be replaced by zeta by 3 mu. Okay. Now, let's go to and for kappa A is much less than 1. So, 1 plus kappa A will be approximated by 1. So, this is the electrophoretic mobility that we are going to use whenever we are coming to the analysis of the filtration of the charged particles, if kappa A is much less than 1. Now, this expression is completely known to us, because we can measure zeta potential using a zeta meter. Psi is epsilon is known to us, mu is the viscosity of the medium that we are talking about, and in order to get electrophoretic velocity, this is nothing but V by E. U becomes V by E. So, V electrophoretic velocity becomes 2 by 3 epsilon mu zeta times E, and now E, the external electric field strength, it is become an operating condition. How it becomes an operating condition? Because by using an external power supply, you are applying a voltage between the 2 points, right, and you know between the top plate and the bottom plate, and you know the distance between the 2 points, top plate and bottom plate. So, V by D is nothing but the E. So, E is nothing but the V delta V by D. D is the total height of the channel, and delta V is the potential difference that you are applying, difference being applied by external power supply. So, you can apply a 2 volt potential difference, so you can apply a 4 volt potential difference, you can apply a 10 volt potential difference. So, it is entirely an operator's choice. So, this is nothing but an operating condition. So, in this expression operating condition will be known to you. You know the zeta potential of the particle, because that you have measured it by using a zeta meter, and all the other quantities are known. So, you can estimate the electrophoretic velocity. Now, let us look into the other asymptote, that kappa A, case number 2, where kappa A is much greater than 1. Okay. Now, in this case we are talking about what is kappa inverse, it is much less than A. So, we are talking about a electric double layer which is very thin. So, it is known as the compact double layer. So, this condition is known as compact double layer, and in this case the curvature effect of the particle will be lost. Okay. Spherical particle is lost. How the curvature will be lost? Since you are talking about a compact double layer, that means you are standing very close to the sphere. So, now if you look into a, as I think we have discussed this point earlier, if you stand very close to a very big football, then you will be looking the curved surface as a flat surface. So, it will be lost, and we can consider the charges in a continuum. So, our analysis becomes a flat surface and a distance x away from it. It is a charged flat surface and distance away from it, and since we can consider the charges in that small distance as a continuum, we can use the Navier-Stokes equation to get the electrophoretic velocity. So, use Navier-Stokes equation, and in Navier-Stokes equation we neglect the pressure gradient and inertial terms completely. So, if you neglect the pressure gradient, that means because there is no pressure gradient, it is only the external electric field, presence of external electric field. So, pressure gradient is lost, that means del P del x term will not be there, and the inertial terms, that means the whole left hand side of Navier-Stokes equation will be neglected. Okay. So, you are neglecting the inertial terms as well. So, on the right hand side what is left? The right hand side is left only the viscous term as well as the body force term. So, it becomes mu d square v dx square is equal to minus epsilon E d square psi dx square. Now, you can integrate this equation. Upon integration, you will be getting u mu times v is nothing but epsilon E zeta, and u becomes, so electrophoretic velocity under this condition becomes epsilon E zeta by mu, and electrophoretic mobility will becomes V e by u by E, and this becomes epsilon zeta by mu. Okay. So, depending on the situation, if kappa A is much greater, kappa A is much greater than 1, we are going to use this expression of electrophoretic velocity in our equation. Okay. Now, this equation is known as Helmholtz-Molotowski equation. Okay. So, we can measure the zeta potential and you know the fluid properties, and one can get the electrophoretic mobility or electrophoretic velocity under this condition. Now, next what we will do, we will couple this system with the actual ultrafiltration process. Now, the ultrafiltration, depending on the situation, there will be two types of ultrafiltration we are talking about. One is the osmotic pressure control and another is the gel layer control. Okay. So, gel layer controlling case, another is the osmotic pressure controlling case. In gel layer controlling, since we have discussed lots about these two processes. In the first case, we are talking about the filtration of high molecular weight solute, which will be forming a gel or a thick gel over the membrane surface. A gel is nothing but a highly viscous liquid over the membrane surface. There are two types of situation when one can encounter a gel layer controlling filtration. Number one is that you can start with the osmotic pressure controlling filtration initially, and then as you proceed along the channel length, the membrane surface concentration keep on increasing. Okay. Beyond a particular point, it may exceed the solubility limit and the solid particles will be deposited over the membrane surface, forming a porous network. That will be a condition of a gel. Second one is, there are some solutes which will be always forming a gel type of layer on the membrane surface from the very beginning of the filtration. For example, pectin, polyvinyl alcohol, things like that. They are known as the gelling material. Okay. This gelling material will be depositing over the membrane surface, forming a thin layer of highly viscous layer. Okay. That itself is a gel. And the osmotic pressure controlling case is basically when you are talking about the filtration of low molecular solutes. Okay. When the osmotic pressure of these solutes, which will be pretty important because the osmotic pressure is inversely proportional to the molecular weight. So, whenever you are talking about the low molecular solutes, the osmotic pressure becomes very important, and sometimes it becomes comparable with the applied pressure difference. So, what happens, your effective pressure difference will be decreased and it will be influencing your filtration performance. Now, in case of, so we will look into both the cases one by one after another. Gel layer controlling UF, and it is basically the governing equation in this case becomes VW minus VE times C plus dC dy is equal to 0. Okay, at the steady state, the one dimensional analysis. So, these two velocities, they are opposite in direction. Why? So, you are going to have a system something like this. It is a channel and the membrane is placed here in the bottom of it. Okay. Top place, let us say all the particles, they will be forming a gel type of layer over the membrane surface and they are positively charged. Now, you use these two plates and connect them with an external electric field with a negative potential on the top plate. So, what it will do? It will attract. So, there will be an external electric field that will be influencing this system, and it will be attracting the charged particles towards it by simple electrostatic attraction. So, electrophoretic velocity will be in the opposite direction, right. And what is the VW? VW is the permeate velocity, or we called it probably J, we just denoted it as J. So, J, the permeate velocity or the permeate flux will be in the opposite direction. So, J minus V times C plus dC dy equal to 0. So, net this will be giving you net convective flux towards the membrane, and this will be the net diffusive flux away from the membrane. And at the steady state, we have discussed that these two fluxes will be equal. So, you can integrate. So, this equation becomes finally Z minus V times C plus dc dy will be equal to 0. Okay. And we can use the boundary condition at y is equal to delta, y is equal to delta, there is the thickness of the mass transfer boundary layer, C is equal to C naught, and at y is equal to 0, my C is equal to C gel, that is the gel layer concentration, and we define the mass transfer coefficient at as d by delta. The film mass transfer coefficient is d by delta, and you can integrate this equation, integrate this differential equation across the mass transfer boundary layer thickness from 0 to delta. Okay. So, if you really do that, what you will be getting is J will be nothing but equal to K ln Cg by C naught plus Ve. So, if you remember the case without external electric field, this term was not present, it was simply J is equal to K ln Cg by C naught, and it will be in case of electric field assisted ultrafiltration gel layer controlled, the electrophoretic velocity will be, it will be added up with the second term. So, and if for the Smoluchowski equation, you can find out f zeta times epsilon divided by mu, right. So, for kappa A much less than 1, greater than 1, right. For this case, you can estimate the zeta potential, you know epsilon, you know mu. So, you can estimate the value of V. So, the permeate flux or the productivity of the system will be enhanced by the same amount, by this amount. Okay. This is a very simplistic scenario. In fact, in an actual case, it will be a little bit more complicated, because the motion of the charged particles, that is the electrophoretic velocity, will be coupled with the solution properties and viscoelectric effect and things like that. Okay. So, roughly one can have a first guess how much the permeate flux or productivity will be enhanced by applying an external electric field by this equation under the gel layer control filtration. Okay. Next, we talk about the osmotic pressure control filtration. Now, in this case, this will typically arise for the case of filtration of protein or salt solution or the polyelectrolytic solution. The governing equation will be almost same, but it will be little bit modified because of the presence of this electric field. So, U del C del X, that is the species balance equation. Species balance equation within the mass transfer boundary layer, it will be U del C del X minus J plus V, okay, del C del Y is equal to D del square C del Y square. So, U del C del X minus J minus V del C del Y is equal to D del square C del Y square. So, this will be the governing equation of the concentrated species balance within the mass transfer boundary layer. If you remember, whenever we derived this governing equation without the external electric field, this term was not present. So, they are just opposite. Okay. So, V was equal to 0 in that case, and if you put V is equal to 0, you get back the governing equation without electric field. Now, the boundary conditions will be changed. Which boundary condition will be changed? The boundary condition at y is equal to 0 will be changed, and in this case it will be J minus VE times C plus D del C del Y. This is the change in the boundary condition that will occur in the case of osmotic pressure control filtration. And if you remember, this becomes the governing equation in case of gel layer controlling filtration, that is a one dimensional model. So, the governing equation of a one dimensional model becomes the boundary condition of a two dimensional model. Okay. So, now this set of equations in case of osmotic pressure control filtration, I am not solving it here, it can be solved in the same way by using similarity transformation, whatever we have done earlier. Okay. So, similar analysis can be carried out as earlier without electric field. To estimate the flux enhancement. Okay. So, probably in tomorrow's class I will try to go in more detail in these aspects, but before that it is better to have a feel what is the meaning of Debye length, what is the typical order of magnitude of Debye length for given a typical concentration of the electrolyte, salt solution, etc., so on and so forth. So, I will just do a couple of calculations in order to estimate the order of magnitude of Debye length given a concentration of the salt. Now, the first example, it is basically we are talking about sodium chloride solution. It is 1:1 electrolyte. It is also called 1:1 electrolyte, and it is the strongest electrolyte, right. So, and it is a 0.01 molar sodium chloride solution. Now, we are going to find out the value of kappa inverse. Okay, what is the Debye length for this particular salt concentration? And we have, it is like AB, it is being dissociated as A plus B minus, where A is nothing but sodium and B is nothing but the chloride species. Now, if you look into the expression of kappa square, this becomes E square summation Zi square N naught divided by epsilon Kb T, where this summation is over the ionic species. There are two ionic species here, one is the cation and another is the anion, that is the chloride ion. So, what is N naught? N naught is basically number of ions, it is the concentration, number concentration of the ions, right. Of ions, and it has a unit as number per unit meter cube. So, if you have molar concentration, this molar concentration should be converted into per liter, per meter cube. That means you have to multiply it by 1000. So, it becomes gram mole per meter cube. Now, in 1 gram mole there will be Avogadro number of species present. So, it should be multiplied by the Avogadro number. So, this has a unit of number per unit meter cube. So, this is the conversion. If you would like to calculate the number concentration, you multiply molar concentration by Avogadro number multiplied by 1000. So, that the number concentration will be in the unit of number per unit meter cube. If you do not multiply by 1000, it becomes number per unit liter. Okay. Now, the Avogadro number is 6.023 into 10 to the power 23. The Coulombic charge E is 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 coulomb. The epsilon is the permittivity of the medium, is nothing but epsilon 0 times D. D is the dielectric constant of water. And this value is 80, and epsilon 0 is the permittivity in vacuum. And this value is 8.85 into 10 to the power minus 12 coulomb per volt inverse meter inverse. Okay, that is the unit of it. And now you put everything in the definition of kappa square. This becomes E square 1000 in Avogadro number summation of molar concentration Zi square epsilon Kb T, and this I is over 1 to 2, that is the ionic species present in the scene in the solution. So, E square 1000 Na, and now this I is over Zi basically, okay, and molar concentration of both the species will be equal at the bulk, otherwise the electroneutrality will not be maintained because it is 1:1 electrolyte. Okay. Now, keeping that in mind, now if you open up the summation series, epsilon kBt etc. all constant. So, we can write it epsilon kBt. So, m also is a constant, does not matter. So, it is basically Zi square. So, it will be plus 1 square plus minus 1 square. So, it is 1 plus 1 2. So, this becomes m plus m. So, this becomes 2000 Na m square over epsilon kBt. Okay. Now, if you put all the values, this turns out to be 1.05 into 10 to the power 15, and kappa inverse turns out to be 30.8 angstrom. So, if you are talking about a 0.01 molar NaCl solution, then kappa inverse will be 30.8 angstrom. Okay. If you increase the concentration of the solute of the salt electrolyte 0.01 to 0.1, this will be kappa inverse will be further decreased. So, the idea is, if you increase the electrolytic concentration, the Debye length will become more and more compact. For let us look into the type of the electrolyte. For 2:1 electrolyte, you have Ab2, that means A2 plus 2B minus, right, and let us talk about, we have 0.01 molar Ab2 solution, and what is the typical Ab2 solution? It is CaCl2 solution, okay, it is a calcium chloride, let us say. Now, in this case, the summation Zi square m will be having 3 terms, 3 parts. One will be one for A, another will be, there are 2 B's. So, one for A, another for 1A, another 1B, another for the second B. Okay. So, you will be having 2 square. So, Zi square. So, it is 2 square plus minus 1 square for 1B, and there are 2B. So, minus 1 square times m. So, it becomes 1 plus 1 plus 4. So, 6 m. Now, if you use the same molar concentration, let us say 0.01 molar CaCl2 solution, the Debye length becomes 17.6 angstrom. Okay, so it is decreased. So, if you are talking about a 2:1 electrolyte, the double layer becomes more compact. Okay, so for a 3:1 electrolyte, that means typically AlCl3. Okay. So, in 3:1 electrolyte, your Ab3, so this becomes A3 plus 3B minus. So, your summation Zi square m becomes 3 square plus minus 1 square plus minus 1 square plus minus 1 square, 3 of them are there. So, 3 into that times m, that means 9 plus 3. Okay. So, it is 12 m, and in this case the electric double layer thickness becomes Debye length becomes 12.4 angstrom. So, double layer becomes more and more compact, becomes more and more compact. That means kappa inverse decreases under these two conditions. If you go from 1:1 to 2:1 to 3:1 electrolyte, number 1. Number 2, if you increase the concentration, that means molar concentration, molarity of electrolyte. If you consider the sodium chloride only, if you increase the molarity, it becomes compact. If you increase the same molarity, if you maintaining the same molarity and increase the nature of the nature of the electrolyte 1:1 to 2:1 to 3:1, the double layer thickness becomes more compact, it becomes less. So this gives a typical calculation of what will be the order of magnitude of Debye length you are talking about, okay, for a typical concentration of electrolyte that will be appearing. Why I have taken 0.01 molar NaCl solution? Because whenever you are talking about the protein solution, all the protein solutions will be having, if you are talking about the filtration of the protein particles, the protein solution will be having a 0.01 molar NaCl, that is typically given as the preservative. So all the protein solution will be having the electrolytes present in it, typically 0.01 molar, 0.15 molar, like that. So that is why I have taken those types of values. In the next example, I will do a small calculation on ultrafiltration of a protein solution in order which is assisted by the external electric field, and then we will see how much the permeate flux will be enhanced. Okay, what is the typical order of magnitude of permeate flux one can expect to be enhanced by using an external electric field. Let us say we have a protein solution in 0.15 molar NaCl, that is basically a preservative, and it has to be ultrafiltered. With the cross flow velocity etc. such that the mass transfer coefficient becomes 2 into 10 to the power minus 5 meter per second. Okay. The filtration is gel layer controlled. And gel concentration is given as 300 kg per meter cube. Okay. The charge number of the protein is characterized. The charge, that means Q on spherical protein, it is known, it is basically 10 times E, that means 10 into 1.6 into 10 to the minus 19 coulomb. Okay. And it has a radius A which will be nothing but 5 nanometer. Okay. So the first question is, what is the permeate flux? Second is, suppose you apply an external electric field. On application field of strength 400 volt per meter, what is the permeate flux? So this is a typical operating condition, 400 volt per meter. Now you should not think that you are applying a 400 volt per meter is really very high, right? The value itself is very high, but it is not 400 volt. The value is basically by using an external power supply, you are using probably 1 or 2 volt, not more than that. But since the height is very small, the whole thing becomes magnified. Okay. For example, E becomes V by D, V by full height of the channel. Now suppose you apply you get 1 volt, you apply an external electric field of 1 volt, and your typical the order of magnitude of height is 1 millimeter. Okay. So 1 millimeter means 10 to the minus 3 meter. So this much of 1 volt will result an electric field of 1000 volt per meter. So that means for a channel of thickness 1 millimeter, if you apply an external electric if you use an external power supply to get a voltage of, let us say 0.4 volt, that will give you a field strength of 400 volt per meter. So it is very small in fact. That means you are not incurring a huge power supply, or you are not incurring a huge cost as far as the external electric field is concerned. Okay. Now, first thing is, what is the permeate flux? The permeate flux without external electric field, this becomes K ln Cg by C naught, the standard formula. Okay. So, this gives you 2 into 10 to the power minus 5 into ln 300 by 10. Okay. That gives you a value of 6.8 into 10 to the power minus 5 meter cube per meter square second. Okay. And let us calculate with electric field. Now, the first thing is you have to calculate the Debye length, value of the Debye length. Kappa square is 2000 Na times m times E square divided by epsilon kBt. I just opened up the summation series, and for NaCl this Zi square will be, summation of Zi square will be 1 plus 1 2. So, 1000 was already multiplied to convert it into number per liter to number per meter cube. So, it becomes 2000. So, now if you put all the values here, this becomes 2000 into 6.023 into 10 to the power 23 into 0.15 into 1.6 into 10 to the power minus 19 square divided by 80 into 8.85 into 10 to the power minus 12 into 1.38 into 10 to the power minus 23 into 300. 300 is the temperature, that is 27 degrees centigrade. So, it is 300 Kelvin, and this is nothing but the Boltzmann constant 1.38 into 10 to the minus 23 joule per Kelvin. Okay. So, this turns out to be, kappa inverse turns out to be 7.96 into 10 to the power minus 10 meter. Okay. Now, you know the electrophoretic velocity. The electrophoretic velocity will be epsilon zeta E by mu. Okay. And this is basically for the case for kappa A much greater than 1. Okay. So, since this is the condition, so we are going to use this formula to calculate the electrophoretic velocity. So, you know all the values. Okay, you do not know what is the value of zeta. Suppose you have not measured zeta potential. For this particular problem, the charge is given. Okay. So, you can calculate the value of zeta potential from the formula that we have defined, we obtained by our theoretical analysis earlier. It is 4 pi epsilon A into 1 plus kappa A. Okay. So, because the surface charge is known, if the surface potential is known, then you could have used that. Now, in this particular case, the surface charge is known. So, QE will be 10 E. So, 10 times 1.6 into 10 to the minus 19 coulomb. So, this is 4 pi epsilon 80 into 8.85 into 10 to the minus 12. A, the radius is 5 nanometers. So, 5 into 10 to the minus 19 multiplied by this whole term comes out to be 7.28. If you just calculate it, this comes out to be 7.28. That means kappa is around 6.28. So, which is much greater than 1. So, that is why we have used this formula for to calculate the electrophoretic velocity. So, this turns out to be 4.94 millivolt. Okay. So, you can now you will be in a position to calculate the electrophoretic velocity by using this formula. So, this becomes 80 into 8.85 into 10 to the power minus 12 into zeta potential is 4.94 millivolt into 10 to the power minus 3. Electric field strength, that is 400 volt per meter, that is already given to you, divided by mu, let us say water viscosity 10 to the power minus 3, and it turns out to be 1.4 into 10 to the power minus 6 meter per second. Now, just put the formula of permeate flux. Permeate flux will be nothing but K ln Cg by C naught plus V e, and this was 6.8. So, 6.8 into 10 to the power minus 5, and this is 1.4 into 10 to the power minus 6. So, this is 6.94 into 10 to the power minus 5 meter cube per meter square second. So, the flux enhancement you get, it will be nothing but 6.94 minus 6.8 divided by 6.8 into 100%. You just calculate how much it is. It is 0.14 divided by 6.8 into 100%. So, it is around 20%, right. So, it is 14 divided by 7. So, it is around 20%. Now, if you increase the field strength from 400 volt per meter to 600 volt per meter, this will be further enhanced. Okay. So, this is the typical order of magnitude of enhancement of the productivity of the flux you are basically looking for, 20%, 30%, not more than that. But is it possible to enhance it further? That means, if you increase a very high electric field, will that cause a very high flux enhancement? No, the system will fail. Why the system will fail? Simply because it will basically at a very high electric field strength, the electrolysis will occur. Electrolysis of the solution on the two electrodes, that will occur. So, in that case, what is the problem? It will form the bubbles, gases will be formed. Now, these gases will be going into the membrane pores, it will block the membrane pores, and the permeate flux will be in fact reduced. So, you cannot go on increasing the electric field strength unprohibitively at a particular level when before the onset of electrolysis you have to keep on doing the things. So, the maximum operating condition of the external electric field strength will be decided by the onset of electrolysis. You have to keep the field strength such that the electrolysis will not occur at that particular field strength. Okay. We will continue this study in tomorrow's class. Thank you very much.